All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Vice Versa. A little different than usual because our very own Matt Ferrell is not with us today. He's a little under the weather. So, Matty, best wishes on a fast recovery. Hope you're going to do well, and we'll see you next week. But the show must go on. And so today, I am joined by my very good friend, Ben Sullins. You guys probably know Ben. Ben is one of the OGs in this space. I think I started watching your videos before we even started YouTube. So you were one
Nice.
of the very first to get into this. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We got some cool topics to talk about. There's a lot of cool stuff around batteries and Tesla and Rivian and stuff. So Ben, why don't you just tell us a little about yourself? You probably know Ben. A lot of you joined us probably from our ludicrous future, but yeah.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me on, Ricky. Yeah, happy to be here. Fan of your work and Matt's work, known you guys for a long time. So, yeah, been doing YouTube for a little while, talking about electric cars, sustainable living, all those kind of things, and just having fun with it. Had the past 2 months off for summer break with the kids, so glad to be back in the studio and on the grind.
I hear you. I saw your time off. I was very envious. Looking forward to having enough videos pre-recorded that I can take some time off as well.
I just didn't publish. I just haven't published a video in 7 weeks or something like that, so 8 weeks now. So, hopefully the algorithm's nice, but it's
From,
yeah,
from my experience anyway, you can take some time off and when you come back,
yeah.
I've done that several times as well. So
It used to be really focused, like you had to be publishing all the time, otherwise it wasn't like your channel would really slowly kind of die. But it was really interesting watching the stats like kind of be steady over the past couple months, like not really going up or down or anything. I'm like, oh, nice. So there is some, obviously when you put out new videos, you get a lift there, but absent of that, it's still like, oh, there's something here that is people still find value in. So it's kind of cool how that works.
yeah, in some ways, that's actually an even more interesting data point. And you being the big data nerd, so that should be a good, interesting angle for our stories today. So, are you
Yeah,
ready to get started?
let's do it.
All right. So, our very first story is about a new startup called StoreDot that claims to have a battery that can charge in 10 minutes. Matt and I, Ben, we all talk about batteries a whole lot because pretty much everything in the future is going to be kind of circled around batteries, whether it's sustainable energy and storage of renewables or electric vehicles and everything else. So this company actually claims that they're building a 4680 cylindrical cell, just like what Tesla is doing, and with the added benefit that their batteries can charge in 10 minutes. So
Hmm.
we've talked about how Tesla had believed that they've kind of cracked the code for their thermal limitations and stuff. There's certain physics that come into play that determine how big a cell can get before the heat builds up and the system's ability with the cooling ribbon to remove the heat can't keep up and everything else. So Tesla's clearly got something going on there. And now this new company out of Israel claims that they can do the same thing. Now this is really early on. They're not like a full rate production or anything. That wouldn't happen for several years, but it's impressive. I think it's interesting that there's so many companies vying in this space and working at possible solutions. But the thing is, I think about, like Ben, I don't know how you feel about this one, but I think about LG and all the problems they've had lately around some of it is I think their
Hmm.
tabs and some contact issues with their tabs. Building batteries is really hard, and when you stick thousands of them into a pack to make a battery, any one of them, or a couple of them could be bad, and you'd have problems. So this is cool and interesting, but early on, and I think they got a lot to prove in terms of all that.
What kind of chemistry are they working with? Is it lithium ion? Is it, LFP? Like what did they say how they cracked this code? Because I feel like I've heard this before with different
Definitely.
battery makers or startups like this years ago. I remember there was one that had it was basically like for it was, pouch style batteries, which are used in a lot of other applications as well as other cars. There were some there that they said basically because it was like one giant cell, you could charge the whole thing in 5 minutes instead of having to charge thousands of little cells, which, regardless of how quick it is, still takes a lot of time. Just having one giant pouch, you can almost do it that way. So did they allude to what it is, or just they say they've got this and Tesla come by us or whomever?
So they did not mention what the chemistry is. And some of the questions that were raised in the article are really good ones. Like, for example, are you telling us that you can take one cell and charge it in 10 minutes? Which, okay, that's
Not
something. but that's
Yeah.
not nearly as exciting as putting thousands of them together and dealing with the residual heat from all of them kind of heating each other up and dealing with that. It's completely different in that situation. Plus, out ambient temperatures, was it 120 degrees outside in Phoenix, for example, when you were charging? Was it, freezing out? So there's a ton to prove. And it seems all the battery companies kind of do the same thing where they give you something to be excited about, and they're pretty mum on some of the details, and it doesn't come out until later, all the challenges that they're going through. Like, remember QuantumScape, they had
Sure.
all these presentations on all the great stuff, but well, you're forecasting, building batteries in like years from now. So what is it between now and then that you're going to have to figure out? And so that stuff almost doesn't come out until like the IPO filings and all that. But yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
promising, but you got to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. In the battery space, it's been like this since I've ever been paying attention. There's always some breakthrough in a lab or this or that, and there's all this hype, and then years go by and you're going, all right, where is it? What's happening? And I think it's exactly what you're saying. When it comes time to actually making these things and putting them through the ringer in terms of what they can handle, because it's different if you put, for example, if you want to do a home battery where the thing is mounted on your wall and doesn't really move, versus in a car that is going 80 miles an hour and hits a wall or something. It's just a different level that you have to build it in terms of the durability and all those things. So yeah, it's exciting, but I wouldn't hold my breath. Like in the battery space, it seems like this is more, every company and every industry always wants to I don't know, foreshadow what is to come and get you hyped so you buy the thing now or something. But in the battery space, it seems even more so that there's so much hype and very little of it comes. But hey, if they've got it, I'd love to see it.
Well said. And I think in that case, you're going to like the next one, because the next story is about something far more tangible. And that is something that Tesla is kind of in the midst of getting into very shortly. And that is becoming a utility provider in Texas. So we've talked about Texas quite a bit this year. Everything starting with the cold freeze that they had that caused all kinds of power outages and showed some of the challenges that they have in their systems, whether it be renewable sources or even like natural gas power plants that weren't weatherized. Tesla is going to jump on the bandwagon and say, if utility companies are deregulated and it's very open market, very capitalistic, why can't we get in and provide power? So they're going to do it with their battery packs, right? And it aims to connect a 100 megawatt energy storage system to the grid. And the cool thing with this is they can, as a utility company, all utility companies still have energy bills. Like, you have to consume energy as well. They could buy low, sell high. They could do all sorts of things. And with their auto bidder software, they can be in the business of buying electricity when it's cheap and then outputting it when it's expensive. And as lucrative as that could be from a commercial standpoint, it's also really valuable to the grid because we don't have storage. That's always been kind of the pitfall that we've seen. And imagine if there was a cold snap like what happened in February in Texas. Well, imagine being able to kick this on and like provide the kind of power needed to keep critical functions operational. That could be like literally life-saving. So also, I don't think Tesla would mind, with ERCOT and their deregulated grid, power prices aren't fixed at all. Like in California, no matter what happens or how many people are running their air conditioner, people can't raise my rate beyond a certain amount, right? Ben and I live here in San Diego. But in Texas, the deregulation is great when electricity is abundant and the prices are, 5 cents, and people brag about that.
Yeah.
But during that cold snap, there were people who had $1,000 electric bills because the prices, again, it's deregulated. Deregulated works both ways after all. And as a result, people were hit with huge fines and they weren't prepared for it. And they didn't know until they got their electric bills that they were charged, dollars a kilowatt hour because, well, that's what the supply and demand, open market, capitalistic price was. So Tesla could jump in and say, oh, $3 a kilowatt hour right now because these plants are offline. You bet, and just discharge and make a ton of money. So this is kind of a win-win for both fronts, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's cool. I really would like, they totally should do it. And I think it makes sense. And I think Texas, it's like you said, a capitalist kind of system there. So go for it. Like if someone can give me something more efficiently, which is kind of the nature of capitalism, then great. I'm sure they'll be all for it. The challenge I find, or the alternative that I would really love to see them pursue is if instead of building power packs, 100 megawatt systems, whatever they want to do. Instead, they did the virtual power plant thing and tried to leverage the power walls of all of the people in Texas already. And if not, they could also do things like offer them for really cheap. So that way, you're decentralizing the grid in a way that makes it more resilient. You know, both of us have worked in tech and software for a long time, and we all know that these big, massive tech websites like Netflix or Google or whatever aren't run by a giant single computer. They're run by millions of little computers, so that if one goes down, it's not a big deal. So I still prefer that approach, a decentralized approach where you have lots of little batteries on everyone's homes, and maybe you subsidize those. Tesla could give them practically for free. And then that becomes your virtual power plant. They're actually just starting to do this in California. They actually do have it in Massachusetts as well, where I believe Matt lives, right? So anyways, I think I like the idea. I think that they could accelerate that and become an even bigger player in that space by doing it in a different way than just, hey, let's build a giant battery. Because even 100 megawatt hours isn't a tremendous amount of energy when in the grand scheme of things. It's not like what a nuclear power plant does or something like that, right? So it's still a drop in the bucket in terms of the overall energy needs of a state like Texas. But if instead you could incentivize people to buy power walls, you're making money there. And, you know, it's just, to me, seems like a better option. But I'm fully supportive of Tesla basically just becoming a utility provider in all these states. It'll have all the benefits you mentioned, and you know, regardless of Tesla making money, you as a homeowner would be protected against these things regardless of what the grid is doing. You know, because even if Tesla had this massive battery that could handle these winter storms, you still have to have transmission lines and transformers and all. There's still a lot of equipment that has to be functioning in order to get that power from the battery to your house. Whereas if you have it on your house yourself, I don't need any of that stuff, right? I've got my essential loads panel, I've got my batteries, I've got my solar. I'm good. I don't need the grid to do this. So I'm in favor of that. But in general, yeah, the more the merrier in terms of how to make it more renewable, more resilient.
It's a really good point you bring up. By the way, I don't know if you've been keeping track with like California building codes, but I think it's 2022 or 2023. They are mandating batteries with every new home installation. So it was like the 2019 or 2020 bill code update that they had where they required solar. So currently, if you build a new house in California, based on how big the house is, you have to include solar when you build it. People might be thinking that's crazy and all this, but you got to remember California houses here are like $1 million easily. So a $30,000 solar system is kind of a drop in the bucket in the overall cost. This would probably not work in places where the homes are cheaper, more affordable. But now they're going to also mandate batteries. So what you're describing of kind of this decentralized grid, that could be in the very near term, especially here in California. You mentioned that Matt lives in Massachusetts. He's already got something like this where they actually already honor this sort of a system. I think maybe in that case, then the Powerwall and the Mega Pack installations can be kind of a proof of concept and show people here's how resilient this can be. And did you opt in, by the way, to the beta for the VPP with your Powerwall?
I did.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah. Just because I assume you're not going to make money on it now in California but I assume that you will as soon as the grid operators here see that. I mean, in the end, you can. The grid, it's all capitalism in the end, right? So the reason that the energy companies or grid operators even care to do this is because they save money. That's what it comes down to. And the good news is that a homeowner, you get paid by doing this. So this little battery into your house becomes a little employee that starts making you money. I know a guy, I interviewed him in Massachusetts, and he got, I think, 2 events or 3 times he got an old notice and said, hey, there's going to be an event. We're going to pull some power from your Powerwall. Don't worry, it'll only go down to 20-25%. And he's like, great, I didn't even notice it being gone or whatever. Right. End of the year, he got a check for $700. Brilliant. I mean, $700 isn't going to put your kid through college, but hey, it's something, and it'll pay for something that is you need in your life. So I'm fully supportive of it. I assume the California one is just hey, let's get a test and show how it works. And then once a grid operators see that, they go, oh, we as a grid operator can make more money and be more profitable. Yes, we're going to do that. That's one of the funny things is I don't really think these energy companies, maybe I'm wrong, but I think their allegiance is to profit and money over oil companies or anything else. It just happens to be the other dirtier sources of energy are cheaper. And so that's where they go. I think it's just an allegiance to the profit and the bottom line. So once they see that these decentralized renewable sources are cheaper, I think they'll easily jump on board.
I think you're 100% right. By the way, at the very beginning of the stream, we had a little mix up where I hit live before I meant to or something. So Bryce Burnett, you mentioned you had a super chat before on the old stream. Thank you for your super chat. We don't see it here, but I appreciate you. Let us know what you wrote, and we can we can show it off. And also wanted to say hi to Bong Hollywood. He mentions he's in the VPP gang as well. He lives very close to me actually, and yes, Bong, I know you're a VPP user as well. I can't wait to see more data. Ben, I'm looking forward to the video on your channel where you go, here's the data, and we dig into what being on the VPP system really means long term. And you mentioned we don't get paid today, but in the future maybe we can. I think you're spot on about the idea that really just comes down to the cost of it. One mistake that a lot of people make is thinking that their energy company, like the company that provides them electricity, generates electricity. They're really the broker, they're the middleman. They have no interest in where it comes from. If today they're buying it from San Onofre nuclear power plant and then they shut down, and the Ben Sullins, Ricky and Matt Ferrell power company with a bunch of solar panels and power walls jumps online, they don't care because they're just going to negotiate and say, what can we buy electricity from you? And then what can we sell to our end customers? And we're going to profit that difference and charge you for generation and everything else. They have no allegiance, just like you said. They don't care where it comes from. So all that really is good news. And I think this auto bidder software will be really central to it. Because if it's super automated and easy, and you mentioned $700, my entire energy bill for my entire house and charging my electric car, so there's no gasoline fill up prices anymore, was about $800 for the year in 2020.
There you go.
2020.
Yeah.
So that would almost cover that. I signed me up. Well, I'm already signed up, I guess.
You get a little notice to say, hey, you want to opt into this? Sure, cool, got it. Okay, a couple times a year, you don't even know the difference. To you, your life just went on, you clicked a button, and bam, your whole energy bill for the year is paid for. And gas bill, in that return. So
that's a really good point.
It's amazing. I mean, yeah, no, I absolutely love this idea. The whole VPP thing. I did a video on it a while ago, but it was the concept is very new and very limited. I'm really excited to see them kind of rolling it out more places.
Yep, totally agree. I mean, I think everybody's excited about VPP. Somebody mentioned they hope that it rolls out in more places like North Carolina and other places. Totally agree. I think you start somewhere as a pilot program and it's going to be a no-brainer for everybody, especially because you can hold energy for times when you need it. That I think Texas has shown us this year that it's really, really valuable. Something we need
in
to
Texas. ERCOT has still having issues in the summer too. I know I was talking to Joe Scott the other day about it, and he was telling me kind of some stories about they're still having these crazy high prices because the same systems and things that went down in the cold didn't all come back online and get rebuilt and totally fixed. So now that it's summer and everyone's running air conditioning 24/7. It's still the same, problem of these really fluctuating prices. And so those days of that, sweet Texas crude giving you 5 cents a kilowatt hour kind of gone until the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that's really good. Speaking of cool stories, this is probably one of my favorite stories because I think you and I are both pretty bullish on the company. That is Rivian filing for their IPO. Now, there's been this SPAC electric vehicle startup kind of frenzy lately. Most companies have gone via reverse merger like Lucid Motors, but Rivian filed and went IPO the old-fashioned way. So that's kind of cool. I think that really raises a sense of credibility for the company because it's a lot more there's a lot more requirements and it's a lot more involved to go the old-fashioned way. There's a lot more bookkeeping and looking into your accounting principles and stuff. So they're going to be offering at a initial valuation of $80 billion, which, if you compare that to Tesla, it sounds like, okay, that's in the realm, but you got to remember that's more than like Honda and, Mercedes and it's higher than Ford, General Motors. It's more than all those companies and they make millions of cars. So maybe, Ben, I'm curious what your thought is on that. But one of the things that the article mentions is they do have hundreds of thousands of pre-orders, like for example for Amazon trucks. So there is a sense that there's a backlog of orders. Ben, I believe, is a pre-order reservation holder for the truck. So it's a popular company, and one thing I think that Rivian has done that is enviable is they've always stayed popular, even through delays and other challenges and stuff. Rivian has been beloved, which, being on YouTube and Twitter, Ben can probably attest. There's a fair bit of negativity towards other companies, and there's something about Rivian and I think maybe their founder, their image, their reputation, or their media presence, something. They have always been kind of on the beloved side and looked up to. So they're going IPO, and they're going to raise money. They're kind of a fundraising machine. They've raised their fair bit, like nearly around $10 billion at this point, according to the article. And they're on the verge of deliveries. I've heard they've been pushed till 2022, but I was reading somewhere that they might be delivering in the next couple of months. So maybe there'll be some early deliveries, and the bulk of it will start in 2022. But Ben, it might be decision time on your reservation sooner than you thought. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think RJ sent out an email saying that September is when they still plan first deliveries, but I would guess that this is kind of how Tesla did it, where these are investors, employees, Jeff Bezos will get one or something like that. This isn't going to be, normal normies like you and me, but them going public, I feel seems a bit premature, but the market, I'm very, I look at the stock market as this. It's even more crazy than crypto. It's just pure fantasy land where people make things up and decide that that's what's worth money. It has no bearing on reality whatsoever. So the value of all of these companies, I think, is fairly meaningless. The only people that really care are big institutional investors or people that should care. So if the people that have worked hard to make that company what it is get paid out of this, awesome. Good for you guys. Take that money, keep making awesome stuff. I think the belovedness comes from the brand, really. If you think Tesla has sort of the tech bro brand where, you live in Silicon Valley and you wanted an electric car, they very intentionally curated a brand that was progressive people with money. And if you think about who that demographic is in today's world, it's largely the tech bros out of Silicon Valley. So I think you have the other side, which is Rivian's brand, which is the adventure bro, right? You've got I drive the truck, I go camping, I like hiking, I do all this outdoorsy stuff. And Tesla clearly does not capture that market. There are people that just could not imagine owning a Tesla because it is too techy, it's too sensitive or fancy or whatever, which is kind of ironic if you think about people that really like luxury cars like Mercedes and Bentleys and stuff. But I think their brand represents a segment of the market that Tesla is not addressing at all. And that's where you get that belovedness and people putting up with delays or problems or whatever, right? So I think, they rightly and smartly did exactly what Tesla did. They decided who their customer was and they went after it and they stuck to it. So them going public, them starting deliveries, I understand September is the current estimate. I'm still bearish. I'm not sure it's going to happen. We'll see. But definitely next year we're going to see a lot of them, right? But at the same time, you start to see Ford with the F-150 Lightning. The challenge or the difference I would say between these two is one is very much geared towards the current truck owner and worker person that uses this for a function. And then you have the adventure kind. So I think of Rivian as sort of the California version where, yeah, I have a truck because it's convenient to throw my mountain bikes in the back or to throw my surfboard in the back. I don't necessarily need to throw lumber in there. I just do it because it's more convenient than having a car and trying to deal with however I would pull it in a car. So I think Rivian's on a good track. I think they've, like you said, have remained popular and I think it's because of the brand and the customer avatar that they've really focused on. And I wish them the best of luck. I mean, I don't know that right now. I'm certainly not going to buy my truck early on like I initially wanted to, just because I'm putting so much money into our new house and we don't need an $80,000 truck. So we'll see down the road. I should be able to get a chance to drive one here in a little bit. And afterwards, maybe my opinion will be changed. But I'm excited about it. Hopefully it gives them all the money they need. And like I said, I mean, I look at IPOs as kind of smart people working hard at companies, taking a chunk out of the institutional investor's pocket. I don't really think it has any bearing on reality whatsoever.
So that's an interesting point you make. So to put it into perspective, I just pulled up some data for General Motors. General Motors is worth $71 billion. They're 100 years old, or whatever it is, right? They've been around forever. At their height in 2016, they made 10 million cars. And even through a pandemic in 2020, they made 6.8 million cars, right? $71 billion. Rivian with two models and a fact. And how many factories does GM have? How much capital,
Zero
right?
cars. Yeah.
So um, I think I love the excitement and the fact that you're pricing all this value early on. I'm okay with all that. As a value investor, yeah, I do kind of cringe at the idea of that kind of valuation. But the danger there really is what happened. So like Lucid stock is really really low right now, and they've been through their own little challenge with the SPAC and that the height of that whole thing, the fiasco last year. But with Rivian, what happens in a couple of months? What does their price look like in 3 or 4 months? What if the delays continue? January comes around, they're still delayed, and it's probably going to happen because there's a chip shortage. Everybody's delayed. There's nobody's, building cars has become increasingly difficult right now for everybody, and so, I mean, who's going to have a better opportunity to get these kinds of materials? The OEMs like GM that buy them by the millions, or smaller startups. So there's going to be challenges, and so when you price in so much value up front like this, I mean, who knows where the price will be in a couple of months. But long term, awesome company. They've got really good fundamentals. I think they've got a good engineering lead and design. Clearly, their platform's good enough to build Amazon trucks, which I think is going to be the future. We're going to have increasingly a delivery lifestyle where everything is delivered to us, and brick and mortar kind of disappears, as it's kind of already been happening. So
Oh, I hate that. I
I
hate
yeah,
that.
I don't know how I feel about it, but I do feel it's inevitable. I mean, could you imagine renting out a space to start a brick and mortar store today, knowing
Yes.
that like California
100%.
could shut you down for the Delta variant tomorrow, or yeah,
Yeah.
it's tough.
Well,
It's
I'll
tough.
tell you what though. Here's my thesis on that. I don't mind brick and mortar stores that serve no unique value or add any culture or art to a city. Like I don't care if Best Buy disappears or whatever, because those things are easily replaceable. But the little mom and pop shops that sell the handmade goods from the local artists, I actually feel like those are doing very well because it sucks that we're all the same because we all buy everything on Amazon. That's not me. This is maybe just my perspective on it, but I really love that brick and mortar in terms of the uniqueness it still exists, and I don't see Amazon or any of these guys really replacing that. There's something that's just magical about visiting a town you've never been to, dropping into a little store that has local handmade goods and finding something amazing. We were in Nicaragua, and we went to the town of Granada, and we found this store that made these bags that Jenny just fell in love with, right? And those kind of things. And if those were on Amazon and those were there wouldn't be a story. There would be nothing special about it. So us personally, and we've actually talked. I mean, I've been trying to talk Jenny into open a store for a long time, but yeah, like I would love to have a little brick and mortar where we go in, we have foot traffic that comes by. You've got your consistent customers that come in, they come and go, and your life is simple and easy, and you're providing value to a community. I think the big box stuff is where it's harder and harder to justify a Staples or a Walmart. But that said, I've been doing a lot of hackery stuff lately with this helium hotspot miner I have in the back here, and I can't tell you how badly I miss Radio Shack right now. Of all the little
I have
adapters
that
and
feeling all the
things,
time.
so I guess I don't know. I think some things, yeah, like no one really cares to go buy cat litter, right? I don't really need I can have that delivered, right? But anything else, I enjoy the retail experience. So I don't know. Yeah, I guess I have a different view on that.
No, you make a really good point. Dustin Green says, I think the future of brick and mortar will be entertainment, culture, and community based. I
There you
actually
go.
really agree. And you're
Yeah.
totally right. There is such a joy. We, living in San Diego and working all the time and having kids, it's easy to kind of lose sight of it. But we try to go out and go to like farmers markets or go to like, little things on the weekend, and going to little shops in all these different beach communities around San Diego. It's such a fun thing. And you're right. They're not selling something you can just buy on Amazon. They're selling unique, different types of of things. And so we all as consumers, we get to vote with our wallets. So if you want to see the future have brick and mortar cool boutique stores, we got to frequent them and visit them. And I think during the pandemic, now that things are opening up again and people are traveling and stuff, I think that that will definitely happen. But you're right. I don't think we need brick and mortar for the things that we can just conveniently get online.
Paper towels, toilet paper.
Right.
Come on, just have it drop. I just take up so much space. I don't care to go there and deal with that, right? But it's not an experience that you're interested in. But yeah, when you find a cool shirt or bag or whatever thing that is unique, and then when someone else sees it, that's great. What is that? Oh, I found it at this place. It was made by this person. Like there's something really human about that, and I really love that, right? Like I hate the digitization and an anonymization of everything, of just, I don't know, I went on Etsy and clicked a button and bam, it's here. Like, no, let's connect and be local and be, groups of actual animals together again, because there's just something great about that feeling.
So a couple things. Eric Kessler, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, haha, Ricky, tell Matt to get well soon. Oh yeah, I miss Radio Shack too. My wife says, there is a Radio Shack in Santee. We drove by one. I don't know if it's
really?
I don't know if it's a full-fledged Radio Shack or if it's like one of these little express things. But Santee, check it out. You should definitely check it out. You might be surprised.
If it's there, I'm in.
Yeah. And Bong Hollywood, who's an electrical engineer, he works on like airframe stuff. He says contact him. He can hook you up with all those kinds of component level stuff that aren't easy to get. He's in Santee as well.
Hobbytown Radio Shack. Is that the same thing? Hobbytown Radio Shack, it says.
Okay. I think that's right. Yeah, maybe it's some sort of a joint venue. I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure.
Have to go check it out. Cool.
Exactly. All right. So the next one, I'm really glad that you're here for this one and to get your insight on it. It is about Tesla's full self-driving. There's a little bit of a study that shows that the uptake, the number of people who actually get full self-driving in their Tesla, is lower than they might have thought. So the worldwide uptake, they're saying, is around it's been up earlier. In 2019, it was up to around 46%. And the way I attribute this is is the early adopters. These are the guys that love tech, that, hit update every second they can to get all the latest and greatest stuff. But once the early adopters got their cars, and then more just, I need a car, Tesla looks cool, I'm going to get one. As more of those late curve adapters come along, the numbers have dropped. So now it's around 11% as of Q2 2021. And there's a really cool, I thought there was a little chart, I'll look for it, that talks about this breakdown by model and various other factors. But people can think of this as one of two ways. One is, well, that just means there's a whole lot of people who have Teslas who could be a future revenue stream for Tesla because they haven't opted in. And maybe the skeptic or the critic might say, why is that number so low? Is the value not as high as Tesla makes it out to be? And I will chime in on that, but I'd love to hear what you have to think. Do you have FSD on your cars? You've had every Tesla they've ever made. Have you had FSD?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have it on both cars, and I'll explain why. But where did they get this data from? Did Tesla provide this, or is this a survey?
It was a survey of 16,000 owners. So take it with what you will, being the data person you are. Yeah, it's a limited scope.
And you said worldwide. So is FSD available outside of the US? I know it's not available in Europe. Like, is it available in China?
Question. I'm going to try to dig into this a little bit and see.
So I just wonder what
context.
Yeah. So if they limited it to say of the people that it could even possibly have it, this percentage of people chose not to, 90 or 89. I don't want to be offensive to anyone. I don't know what the rules are. If you want to survey people in China, does the government have a say in whether or not they can answer that survey? And how does that data get, I mean, if you look at even in Europe, GDPR rules, where does that data go and how can you get it? You can't just really ask people these things in an invasive way. So I'm skeptical of the data collection, I guess is my first thought. But let's assume that it's right. 11% take rate. That seems high to me, because FSD itself doesn't. So I'll give you my cynical view on it is that it should be 0%. This is a completely useless piece of software that I don't recommend anyone install or buy or pay $1 for, because it adds no value. The only person I think that should ever do it are people that have some financial incentive to do it, or they are just a hardcore geek and want to learn and test. So I would imagine that take rate, if I were to guess what it should be around 5% or less. Now, I have it on both cars for the reason I mentioned. There's a financial incentive for us. For a while, FSD meant you got certain features. And with my job being someone that makes content for a living, these features equal dollars, right? So having these features, being able to make this content is purely a commercial decision. If I didn't have this job and want to share these things and see how it worked, I would absolutely not spend $1 on any of this. I do enjoy the driver assist features of autopilot, the very basic keep me in my lane, speed up, slow down. And even that, I would say I use 20 to 30% of the time that it is available to me. And I'm sorry, not even when it's available, but like on freeways where it's designed to be used. I use it very sparingly, very rarely. You know, if my wife's in the car, 0% chance I'm using it. If anyone else is in the car, 0% chance I'm using it unless they're there to see it and they're curious about it. So I have a very bearish view on FSD at all. And the notion that this thing will somehow go off and make you millions of dollars, anybody that believes that, I will sell you both of my cars right now for a great discount, right? $250K each, right? They are available. If you think that this car will make you millions of dollars being an FSD, whatever, I'm here. You can have it today. I think that's pure nonsense. I think it's a complete kind of lie. You know, I could be wrong, but I don't see full self-driving as even worth pursuing from Tesla's standpoint. I think it's a distraction from the mission, honestly. Autopilot, driver assist, basic stuff, good, great. I would leave it there.
So what's really funny is you have FSD in both your cars and your view is such, and I don't have FSD. We're toying with the idea of getting a Model Y, and I wouldn't get FSD on that either. It's just not a financially a decision I'd want to make. But I do see the value in it a little bit. But okay, there's a couple things that you mentioned. The first is this $1 million robo-taxi thing. I've seen that on Twitter. There are so many people who go on Twitter and they'll say, hey, I'm getting a Tesla. Should I get FSD? And then you'll see like the Tesla faithful chiming in and they'll be like, oh, you have to get it because the prices are going to go up.
Yeah.
Which if you have money, right? If you have a lot of money, do as you will. There was some great, I think it was somebody in the comment section in the past said, buying FSD is kind of like the ultimate Kickstarter for a future where cars can drive themselves. And I do think that way. I think Tesla's got one of the smartest teams. They're doing some amazing stuff. So if you have the money for it, I have no problem with that. My problem is there are people who are scraping to like get into like a SR Plus Model 3 who might be able to afford it. And they're wondering, should I get the long range or get the standard range and get FSD? And to me, that's a no-brainer. You got to get the long range because there's just too many reasons why you want the extra battery capacity. And FSD now is, you know, monthly. You can turn it on and off and a million different things. Yeah, I'm torn. I don't think it's completely useless. There's so the argument. So Ben, I'll play the major FSD proponent and let's see how what your responses are. Right. First of all, car utilization. Your car right now is parked doing nothing. So is mine. Right. So is everybody in the stream. They're just sitting there. And 90+% of a car's life is spent just rusting on a driveway. But something like FSD and robo-taxis, again, it does seem like it's far off, but whenever that future would be possible, you can't get there until you invest in building it. That could change. Suddenly your car, when you and I are here talking, could be picking up and dropping people off and being better utilized, lowering the requirement for the number of cars that we have to manufacture. What do you say to that?
Well, I think your logic is sound. I just don't follow the timeline or the lifespan of the vehicle. So I don't see this happening within 10 to 15 years. And I don't see myself keeping this car within 10 for that period of time. And by then, cars will be wildly different. And if we're making robotaxi specific cars, guaranteed they will have different features that make the robotaxi aspect of it much more comfortable and convenient. Imagine sitting in the back of a car when you wouldn't need a front seat at all. I just think that by the time we get there, it's so far off that it would be a completely different animal. So giving them money for it now is a complete waste. But in general, the theory of what you have, I think, is sound. And if if at all that comes to fruition, I think it would be a great thing. I think maybe Waymo is a good example of this, where the car doesn't look like a fancy car that you would want to buy and drive. It's just a people mover. It's big and easy to get into and comfortable, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, and Waymo, you could argue, is self-driving or not. I don't know if you saw Derek's video, Veritasium, but it's level 4. There might be a human person monitoring the situation. It is geofenced. So it certainly doesn't meet the level 5 requirement of it can just go anywhere. Like it could be raining and snowing out and it doesn't care, and you can drive anywhere. So it definitely doesn't meet level 5, but it definitely does meet the level 4 requirement of it is driving people around given the right conditions. So I like the idea. I don't know, especially in this country, if that would ever reduce the amount of cars on the road. We are a car-driven economy and society here in the U.S. In fact, if you look at the history of how that even came to be and how highways were built and roads were built, I don't see that changing just because you no longer have to own a car. Maybe Uber will all of a sudden be a lot more profitable. But I personally don't see, at least in this country, the number of cars going down and the time horizon on there is so far out. That's really what it is. It's not that it's not possible, but it's just 20 years from now, 30 years from now, maybe. So fine. In 20 or 30 years, I'll eat my hat or whatever. Right. But as of now, so that would be my main argument, is that I just don't see it happening. So it's kind of just like throwing money away.
Okay, so the comment section is definitely more lively now, which I kind of figured it would be. So I'll start with this. My philosophy is that like full self-driving cars, my window is like by 2030 we'll definitely have it. I think actually by 2030 it'll be a commodity, meaning it won't even be special. No one's gonna talk about it. It'll be like
Wow.
wireless charging on your phone. No one makes commercials going now iPhone 15 with wireless charging, because it's ubiquitous and a commodity, and I think that's gonna happen. Within 9 years, I think this problem can be solved for sure. And I think it's going to radically change the nature of our interactions on the road. Potentially, I mean, it's going to make us safer, right? The human factor really is what's kind of the problem in most situations. It's people being distracted and all that. So my argument has always been there might be even more than just one car by itself. There might be this community approach where we have like car-to-car communications and some other protocols that we need to establish or other things.
Yeah, I like that.
We'll see how that all plays out. But I think it's well worth investing in that. The last time we had this chat about this, there was a gentleman who came on and mentioned that he has a handicap that permits him from driving. So his level of autonomy in his life is drastically reduced. He can't even just call Uber because most Ubers don't have like handicap access. So his life would completely change if his car could drive itself. If he could go take his Tesla or some other model, whatever the case was, and get it retrofitted and then have it drive itself. He could just go in and say, take me to the zoo, and it'll just go to the library or zoo or whatever the case might be. That could be revolutionary and game changing. So I think the value is there, and I do think we're going to have it. I mean, do you have any doubt that we're going to all have self-driving cars one day? I think we can maybe debate or disagree on the date, but we're going to have self-driving cars, right? Do you doubt that?
I think it depends on at what level you're talking about.
Like 4 or 5, where there's no steering wheel, where you just hop in.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll see that in my lifetime. Yeah.
Really?
Assuming I live a normal lifespan. Yeah, I'm not as confident that we'll see cars without steering wheels. That people like, why would you buy a car if what is the purpose of owning it in this scenario? There is none. You can just click a button and have one come to you. And there was a study done about New York City with Uber, and that it was supposed to reduce traffic, and it increased traffic. There are more cars now because there's more people with Ubers trying to get in there and do stuff. So I don't know if all of these theories we have about the changes that we could realize will play out exactly as we expect. Because first off, the main thing is you're talking about humans and humans buying things and using things, which the whole field of behavioral economics purely exists because there was a radical idea that humans are irrational when it comes to buying things. I know it sounds crazy, but there's a whole field of study solely designed around this, where if you look at the economic side of it or the math side of it, you're like, this is what you should do, but people always do this, right? Apple will change the bezel on the phone from square to round, and oh my god, I got to have it. Completely irrational, right? So I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure we'll see true level 5. I'm not sure we'll see it in my lifetime. Will it ever happen? Sure. But ever or forever or 50 years or 100 years is impossible to guess any of these things. Level 4, like I said, we already have it. It's Waymo. They're doing it. There's companies in Europe that are doing it. It does exist. But level 4, the key difference, if I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you've looked into this probably more than I have. The key difference between level 4 and 5 is level 4 is like certain conditions have to be met, then it can be self-driving. And so that now, I think there will be so many different levels too. Like imagine a college campus with little shuttle buses running around. That you could do that today. That's not even hard if you think about it. You're pre-programming the route and you just load it up with sensors and make sure it doesn't go above 5 miles an hour, whatever the case is. There will be applications for this thing that aren't you owning one and you get in and say, take me to Las Vegas, and it goes 90 miles an hour down the freeway. I think that's an extreme use case that is very difficult to try to achieve. But it doesn't mean, I guess what I'm saying is, it's not that the road along the way won't have fruit for us to eat. There will be a lot of things and a lot of benefits to it as we get there. I don't know if this vision that Tesla's laid out and that Elon has literally sold to people will ever come a reality.
Gotcha. Okay. I was thinking about a couple things you mentioned about utilization levels and the fact that when you build more roads, there's more traffic, which is counterintuitive. It's a fantastic study that I've definitely read as well. And I agree with you on that. I don't think so. Telesto in the chat mentioned, I don't think people will own cars in the future. It just won't make sense. You'll just get the robo-taxi for, pennies on the mile type of thing.
Completely disagree. Completely disagree.
Disagree, yeah. So
people still own horses.
Yeah. Okay. So that's true. Not much, but yeah, people just don't. I actually think
not much. Thousands and thousands of people. I mean,
right.
There's equestrian trails all over the place. It's not uncommon for people to own horses in certain parts of the world. The view that people won't own cars, I would say, is a very biased perspective towards progressive thinking and city living and those kind of things. Right. There will always be people wrenching on hot rods. I mean, as there are today. There's people with cars that have naturally aspirated carburetors and like the technologies that are terrible and just garbage, but people love to do it. There will always be cars. People will always own them. They will always work on them. Think about Rich Rebuilds not owning a car. Are you kidding me? If he can't rip it apart and rebuild it. So I completely disagree with that notion that we won't own cars. I would say maybe a younger generation or fewer people will own cars, but it's just hard to imagine that people, I don't think that will actually happen.
So today, you can make the argument that the choice to buy a car is a function of how much money you make, how much a car would cost. I mean, insurance and all the other factors that go into it. And you could say, well, why don't you just take Uber? Well, Uber is not cheap. It's expensive too, especially lately. I did the math on my last trip. Uber was more than a taxi. I don't even use it anymore because I feel like it was exploitative. It exploited the drivers back when it first launched. It was so dirt cheap and everyone loved it. And then now they're actually having to pay the piper and like really paying the true cost. And now the costs are so high that taxis seem like a bargain. So that's a different question kind of. But my point is, imagine if there was driving car taxis and the price came down at such a level, how would that affect buyers of cars and stuff? I will say as a person with kids, you've got 2 boys, I've got 2 boys. Car seats are the reason why we can't take Uber. We actually have to either drive our car to the airport or have a friend drive our car or call a friend who has a car with car seats to drop us off and stuff because you're not going to get an Uber with 2 car seats in it.
We just did it. We just went to Oregon and we called an Uber, the Uber XL, so it had extra space, and we brought our car seats. And then and so we installed them in the car when the guy showed up, and then when we got to Oregon, we actually had a Turo and we installed them there. And we had
so imagine then it's Saturday, you and Jenny are going to get up or we're going to go somewhere and go to the mall and walk around. Think about how much of a headache that would be to not own your own car, right? Car ownership is super convenient for people with kids. So yeah, I also disagree. Even if my car was full self-driving, I would still want to own it because there's just so much value in being able to park everything in there to take it somewhere, and it's almost like a little mobile hotel room, a mobile house when you're on the go, and you can keep it for road trips and everything else.
Well,
and for people who can afford it, it's not cost prohibitive anyway.
Think about people trying to escape Hurricane Ida. And if you don't own a car, you literally are not going anywhere. And all the other cars are taken up by other people. And guess what? We don't have enough cars for everyone. There's all kinds of problems with this. And again, you could argue, again, as the person was saying about the cost of it being so dramatically cheaper. Fine. What you're talking about is a rational consumer, which does not exist. People don't care about the things. Why would anyone, spend an absurd amount of money? Like, why would anyone buy a car that is not just the most basic thing? Why would you buy a Mercedes over a Tesla or whatever? It comes down to your identity and the brand and the style and all this stuff. Like we make buying and purchasing decisions on emotion, not on facts and data, unfortunately. But there's reasons. Owning a family, there's humans not being rational at all. That's why I'm just like, I don't see it. I don't see a world at all that is like devoid of cars, unless there's something that's not a car that comes out, right? Like how when cars came out and wiped out horses as for transportation, that was like, oh, this is not a horse. It wasn't just a bigger, better horse, right? What we're talking about is a bigger, better car. If there was something that wasn't a car, I could see that wiping out car culture, but I don't see it happening at all, just being a better self-driving car or whatever.
Yeah, that's that's one of the things. I was reading the comment section. Eric Kessler says, amen, Ben. If my baby sis can have her horse, then I can keep my manual transmission GTI or 911. Yeah, those are special. And manual transmission cars are special things that you want to keep even. Yeah, but there's always going to be that group. But I'm almost just thinking more generally. I've always said I think FSD and full self-driving cars aren't going to get rid of car ownership. Anybody who can afford a car, I think, will continue to feel the value of having a car. Now I can just sit in the back seat and have my car drive for me. I don't think, like for me, if you told me, hey, the next Tesla is going to be self-driving, I would want it and I would buy it. I don't think that I would suddenly stop owning a car. But I think what we will probably do is a couple of things. One is, how about public transit? Buses are massive. Like right now they're gasoline or diesel, natural gas. They're just eyesores. They idle.
We have electric ones here. We have electric buses in San Diego.
But but some places, it depends on where you live, right, of course. But they sit around idling. They're just emitting pollution, and they're huge. They're massive. Imagine if, especially step one, it has to be electric. You don't want gas-powered self-driving cars because they have all the same problems, I think, long term. And electric vehicles are so reliable, require so little maintenance that they can really be utilized, put hundreds of thousands of miles a month very easily. But imagine you have cars that are just driving around, picking up people, dropping off people, cities, rural, whatever the case might be. They could displace buses, I think, and subways and all the public transit much more quickly than they would replace car ownership. But to your point, to sit here with our crystal balls and predict this stuff, it's everybody's own opinion and guess. We'll see. Time will tell. But also, I think remote work, COVID has kind of shifted the thinking that we don't all have to be cramped on top of each other. Maybe we move out into the rural areas. So like, for example, rent in SF in New York is cheaper than it was. And where we live, 10 minutes, like Ben and I live, a couple of miles from downtown San Diego. I'm about 10 miles. Our housing values are skyrocketing because people have the same idea. Let's get some space and some land, and I can work from my laptop with the internet. So there's going to be some trends, I think, in play for sure.
Yeah, I'll say that I'm a big proponent of public transit. I really love it. So to just put my money where my mouth is, I spent a year in Phoenix before I moved to San Diego, not driving a car at all. I took public transit and rode my bike everywhere. Now, one thing, if you guys know Phoenix at all, it's completely flat. So it's very easy to do this. You can ride for 10, 15 miles and not even break a sweat unless it's hot out. But point being, I'm a huge fan of public transit. And then my first 5 years living in San Diego, I lived near a coaster station, and I took public transit, the train, and then, little shuttle buses to my work and back every single day. So I barely even drove my first 5 years living here. So I went almost 6 years, almost entirely relying on public transit. I did try to ride my bike more in San Diego, but it's very hilly. And I'm talking Lance Armstrong when he was all doped up hilly. Like, this isn't just that's a little hill. No, it's like, I'm not going to make it up that. So I'm a big proponent of that. And anytime, me and my family or myself travel to cities that have not even, I don't even want to say good, but existing public transit, we take it. San Francisco, I take the BART, I take Caltrain. Caltrain, it's all the time. Paris is my favorite place to take the train. It's clean, it's beautiful, it's always running. I think public transit in the right setting works great. But as you said, we have this kind of great migration away from cities, which I don't think will last. I think people will all come back. I think we're going to quickly forget everything that we're trying to learn here. That's just my cynical view of human behavior. But so there's a lot of people living in more rural areas, like you said, and public transit there just doesn't exist. It just doesn't make sense. There will always be use cases for all these things, but I don't personally see it changing that much unless we get the anti-gravity magic flying car thing or whatever, something else that you're just like, oh, cars are totally stupid now.
Yeah, I think for me the staple, or like the best example of public transportation is Japan. Their Shinkansen system is ridiculous. In 10 days in Japan, covering from like north to south of Japan, I think the entirety of the trip, we had 2 minutes in total delays from when it said the train was leaving in 10 days.
Yep.
And like 25 hop-ons, hop-offs, 2 minute delays total. Absurdly incredible. But the thing is, Japan is not even like the size of California. And I feel like we would never get this figured out in California. I don't know what it is about the US lately. It just feels like the price tags to get any sort of public initiatives done has grown to the point where I almost doubt that if we try to do the Hoover Dam today, it's not happening. And I don't know why that is, and why other people seemingly are able to have great public works and we seemingly seem to fail at it. But yeah, there's got to be some answer. And I really think the self-driving car could help with that. You mentioned rural settings. You're not going to likely have billion-dollar infrastructure for a town of 5,000 people or like a couple of rural stops. It would never pay for itself. So we would always have to have cars.
Right.
And self-driving would definitely kind of factor into that. I think we're kind of touching on like the future of everything. We're basically putting on our Nostradamus hats and trying to predict what the future will look like. And that's going to be difficult, but there are some changes on the horizon. And I think self-driving is one of those things that's going to be, well, clearly I think you're thinking it might not even happen in your lifetime. I'm thinking it's going to happen pretty quick. From the people, I don't know if you've talked with people or been in a car, an FSD beta car. It's pretty impressive. My feedback from the few people I've spoken with and I've spent time with is it's really impressive. There are some mistakes it'll make that are kind of crazy and you got to be alert, but like 80%, it's incredibly impressive. It'll stop and wait at a yield for somebody walking across the camera, which I spoke with Tesla Raj, and he was saying there was a point where he's at a stop and he's like, why is the car taking so long? And he had to look over and there was like an old man crossing the street and the car saw it and was just waiting. And as soon as he cleared, the car takes off. I mean, when you have that kind of field of view and stuff, it's incredible what hard challenges for us are easy for the computer. But sometimes it's kind of the opposite, where easy things that we would just notice are what they struggle with, and vice versa. But the level of progress is massive. I mean, we could spend hours talking about Dojo and all the stuff that they have planned for how somebody in the comment section mentioned it's been exponential, their progress. Imagine 4 years ago, you probably had a Model S 4 years ago, I'd imagine. And did you have FSD or whatever that equivalent was back then?
Didn't exist
back then. Okay, whatever it was then till now. But I mean, like, it's been hockey stick. It's been an exponential level of improvement, and it will probably continue to do so.
But it's machine learning, right? And this stuff. So it's not an instruction set that just always gets better. And there are other unforeseen problems that come with it. Like, are you familiar with what fleet speed is? Have you ever witnessed this? It's funny, I mentioned this in a video and I got so many comments. So here in San Diego, 805 freeway going south through Sorrento Valley, it's busy every day at 3 o'clock. If you happen to be driving through that section of freeway at that time and it's not busy, your car will still slow down. Even if there's no traffic whatsoever. It's because the machine learning algorithms assume that it is going to be slow there. And this is actually kind of a very widespread problem in the Tesla fleet. So there's all kinds of other challenges that come out. It's not like here's the new version, it's 100, it's going to be better in every case. It's almost like a Rubik's cube where like you get one side solved and now the other side is messed up. So it's, I think, for example, autopilot for us, I barely trust, and it has, if anything, maintained or gotten worse over the years. It's not something that I'm comfortable with at all. Phantom braking, turning at random points. I mean, it's just not good. And I've had every car they make and every level of computer chip and everything. And it's so for me, I look at FSD beta, I'm like, absolutely not. Am I getting in that car? Definitely not. And to me, again, the whole thing that frustrates me about it with Tesla is that they're pouring so much time and energy into this, and it is not helpful to the mission. It is not about getting cleaner cars on the road and reducing emissions. It's about being, doing this other thing. And I don't know what the motivation would be. Make more money? Seems odd that Tesla's motivation would be profit. It clearly is in some ways. But to me, that's where this whole thing goes off the rails. And I just look at it and go, what if we only focus, if we just focus on the basic driver assist stuff, getting rid of phantom braking, getting rid of fleet speed, getting rid of some of the challenges for the basic stuff, and we really focus on, say, customer service or operations or invoicing or all the things that really seem to plague a company that makes beautiful and amazing products. The business side needs so much love. And I just look at it and go, people buy these cars, they have quality issues. Like my brother just returned his Tesla. He absolutely hated it. He said every single month something was breaking and they were terrible when I had to deal with them. These are the things that destroy brands. And so as great as Tesla is in making these wonderful products, and they really are second to none. I just drove the Plaid yesterday. It's just out of this world. I really, if I could wave a magic wand and be Elon for a day, I would say, hey, yeah, keep pushing on FSD, but that's definitely not a top priority. Top priority is customer service, it's operations, it's quality controls, all the things that are known problems. Like there was a funny tweet I saw someone say that where Japan, conquered the auto market by convincing everyone that quality was the number one priority, and then Tesla just absolutely destroyed that and turned that into a myth. So I look at it as like you as a company, as a human, as everything, you're an organism. You have a finite amount of resources that you can dedicate to things. And this whole thing to me seems like a distraction and a sideshow. Whereas if you just made not just the best products and the best electric vehicles on the road, but you were the best quality of care and experience for the user, you would really get more people coming into the fold and really accelerate the transition. And that's still what I believe is the primary focus, or what should be the primary focus.
Yeah, it does seem FSD gets the lion's share of the headlines. It's always the popular thing that they're talking about. And I like FSD. I like that they're working on it. I think I'm a little more, I'm more in favor of it than you are, but at the same time, the reasons why I love my Tesla have nothing to do with FSD. It's all the electric stuff. It's the fact that I have a Model 3 Performance that does 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds and cost me like $4 to fill up at home, and I never have to go to gas stations, and I've put 30,000 miles on it in like 18 months because I love it, and I just love driving it. And that stuff, I don't think they should probably talk more about all the cool stuff that they do. And also they should probably imagine when I'm curious how the discussions will be about Tesla when the Cybertruck is out. Imagine when there's 100,000 Cybertrucks being produced a quarter or more in the near future, like maybe 6 months from now.
It's going to be insane.
It's gonna, I mean, I don't know how you feel about the Cybertruck, but I mean, talk about really having some cool options and availability if you're a truck person. Because right now, most car arguments are like, oh, if I'm a truck person, I can never get electric. But wait till one of your friends has a Cybertruck and the two of you, you have like a Ford Raptor or something. You're gonna feel pretty silly pretty quickly, especially with all the power and everything else. So yeah, their mission has always been to move the world to a more sustainable future. This is why we wanted to have you last week. Ben was busy last week, but we talked about this. Where is Tesla's mission still their mission? Are they rerouting with robotics and stuff? I think they've been pushing themselves as a robotics company. That which isn't to say that there isn't value there. For example, one of my arguments last week was there's all these things that we can't do today because they're not commercially viable. Like recycling, we don't recycle. It's a great scam. We don't recycle because it's just
Yeah.
there's no money in it, and no one's gonna do stuff and not make money. Like to your point about power. Um, I met with a company that's doing battery manufacturing and recycling some various things, and what they all talk about is like when we purify graphite, for example, there's all these impurities. If it was commercially viable, we could take these impurities and sell them as, vanadium and all molybdenum and all these different elements that are valuable. But the problem is there's no market because it costs too much. But if you had robotics or
Yeah.
you had some sort of a autonomous machine that could do various tasks, just imagine what kind of things could suddenly be possible commercially and be economically profitable. So that to me is, I think that's kind of a very broad picture of sustainability, but I do see what they're kind of aiming towards. My hope though is focus on making cars. Like everything else, robotics and self-driving, that's great, but we really need to have a path to like cleaner vehicles, transportation. We need power packs. The Tesla power story, that's a fantastic one. That really rivals the CO2 reductions of cars, if and maybe even more so. So yeah, it's kind of just a question of priorities. There's only one Tesla. If we had 10 Teslas out there, how cool
Right.
would that be? We could have one do robotics and one focus on cars and this and that. But there's just one. So I think this beloved company that most people, I'm thinking, looking at the chat, most people really love. It's just a question of how they prioritize their resources, which are not finite,
Yeah.
not infinite.
That's exactly, anytime I seem angry or mad at Tesla, or Elon, it's because I love the just cause that they've championed of transitioning the world to sustainable energy is one that is like near and dear to my heart, and I am so passionate about it. I try to do everything in my world, in my work, to try to do the same thing to further that mission. And so when I see all these resources being poured into things that are seemingly unrelated and distracting from it, that's when I get really upset about it, and frustrated, because you look at it and you go, what are you doing here? Because sure, Elon is a madman billionaire and he has earned the right to create a humanoid robot or do whatever the hell he wants, but don't spend company resources and time on things when you have these glaring, tremendous problems that are turning people away every single day. That's the thing that I can't stand. It's like somebody starting a workout regimen, but they're like, gonna up their how many cigarettes they smoke a day. You're like, how about we just stop smoking cigarettes first, right? How about we start doing the basic things that will help us become a better company, which then attracts more and creates growth in all these other areas. And it's really frustrating. Like if you look back, I remember, was it 2019? Elon had a big thing about all these terrible customer service stories that were coming out and quality controls and all this stuff, and they were just getting raked over the coals in every which way in the media. And Elon came out and said, this is going to be my number one priority. I think it was an earnings call or something. I'm not going to rest until all the customer service is fixed and we have the best customer service of any company in the world. And it just absolute like lies. Like it was just none of that came true. And because the next thing, there's a shiny new object over here. Let me make the Cybertruck. Great. Okay, cool. Yeah, great. I do think we need an electric truck. I think Cybertruck has its place. I think it's definitely doing a thing. But dude, fix your shit. Like there are so many other problems that you could make better. And so like when I get frustrated or angry or cynical about this, that's why. It's because the mission that they've championed is so near and dear to my heart and in my life, that when I see people doing things there, it's infuriating. You're going, what are you doing? And this is why also I applaud other companies that seem to really be giving it their all. Like Ford, I think, is doing a tremendous job. I've driven all of their cars and all the electric ones and all doing all the things, and I'm like, yes, you guys are killing it. I don't care. I'm with Chelsea Sexton on this. I don't care about the water under the bridge. If whatever it took you, soul searching, whatever, to get to this point of, oh, we need to make everything electric and go hard on it. Cool, welcome to the party. Let's go. I don't really, that stuff doesn't bog me down as it does some other people. So yeah. I mean, the whole thing, man, has Tesla lost its way? It certainly appears to be that. Has their mission changed? That's the big question, because if so, then I think you'll lose a ton of people. If our mission is just like make cool shit, then it's like, sorry, I can't get behind that. You know, I can't pour my work and my life and my energy and my dollars towards something that isn't something that I associate my own identity with, you know?
Really, really good point, Ben. So Krissa Kent Kentar says people who fix customer support can't make the car safer and more efficient. So this is definitely an Elon mantra. One thing I do love about Elon as an engineer myself is he cuts out a lot of other things and is like, look, hire engineers. And I can't prove this, but I bet you Tesla's percentage of engineers as a function of like total job opportunities or availabilities at Tesla is probably higher than any company on earth by a margin. You'd be shocked, like at a tech company, like a software company, what percent of people are
It's all
developers.
lawyers.
It's shocking. Like, right. It's crazy. And it's a shame because really that's really what we probably should be focusing on. But Krissa, I mentioned in the chat, and I already wrote it in. I hear her point, but I will say this: I've probably gotten 100 emails from Tesla car owners or solar buyers who've asked me like, "Can you please help me?" Like, for example, the latest one was a gentleman named Jonathan who I had a chance to meet here in San Diego, which is always cool when I get to meet my viewers. But he emailed me because after 7 months of waiting, he could not get his solar turned on. It was completely getting ghosted by the Tesla rep. It was kind of like they got most of it set up, but they weren't fully permitted to turn on. And he was just like, Ricky, could you please help me get this thing going? So I will say this, if anybody has solar issues, I now do have a couple of really great contacts. I emailed this guy and he had his solar up in 2 weeks. It was like, he got in touch with him like 2 days later, and Jonathan, he became a patron. He was so happy. So my point is, like, emailing YouTubers should not be your strategy, right? I agree with you on that 100%.
It should not be. This is what I'm saying. I mean, there's things about a great brand, right? And you really lose. It can't be, okay, so W. Edwards Deming, if you want to get into business philosophy, created or coined, wrote down this notion of systems thinking or design thinking. And the whole concept is that a company is a singular thing. It is a singular unit, like your body. Like I was talking about working out and chain smoking. Like these things don't work together. So you can't just load up nothing. Like this is, to your point. If that's true, if they have all the best engineers in the world, they will make the best engineered products, which I don't doubt that they do. I fully believe that they make the best electric vehicles I've ever been in, and I've been in a fair amount of them. So no doubt. But that one thing now forces the rest of your business to suffer. So you can make the cars safer, sure. But if people are so pissed off that they can't get an issue fixed, or they're being treated poorly, or they're being told to shove it because, they said something on Twitter or whatever, what's going to happen is these people are going to detract from the brand, and you're going to lose market share. And you're going, you have to treat your whole organization as a singular thing. So if you increase sales, you need to increase customer service. If you increase, if you increase sales, you need to increase your finance support or operations. If you increase manufacturing, you need to increase your parts department and service department. They all have to grow and contract at the same pace. So that is the thing where I'm certain Elon doesn't think of it this way. He's not a businessman. He's an engineer, a brilliant one. And that's why I, for many years now, have advocated of him hiring a chief operations officer, somebody to run the business and take care of all this crap, because he clearly doesn't want to, despite him saying it publicly. So sure, we can pick out every little thing. Well, if you hire that, you can't do this. If you do this, you can't do this. It's the game of whack-a-mole. And this is what so many companies deal with. And very few companies, but some of the best ones you know of, are the ones that treat it appropriately. Right, where, we're gonna double iPhone production because sales look great. Let's make sure we have enough Apple stores and appointments available, because if somebody buys an iPhone and then their experience of owning the iPhone is absolute trash, they're gonna go buy an Android phone, because at the end of the day, the feature set is very comparable. Tesla has had the fortune of being so far ahead in the electric vehicle space that, like, buying another electric vehicle seemed absurd. If you wanted to buy an electric vehicle, it seemed dumb. Why would you do that? But now with companies like Rivian and Lucid and Ford and all these guys coming out with very compelling, very beautifully built products, I think you could really lose a lot of people. So the notion is we should be thinking of this organization as one that is marching towards a just cause that we all believe in, and we're doing it in a way that is sustainable for the business. You can't just have engineers in a company, right? It's great
I don't know.
for the
I'd love to try
engineering side. Well, yeah, but no one would stick around. They would buy one car and they'd be like, I'm out, because you can't answer a damn email about a simple question, you know?
Yeah.
So that to me is the whole thesis. And I've studied business stuff for so long that that's why I'm thinking that way.
Two comments I wanted to point out. Stephen Smith says, I'm not impressed with Ben's argument. He says, where I live, service is great. Quality on my Model X is superior. And the hope of FSD to enable us to drive in the advanced age is wonderful. So Stephen, I think super happy to hear your experiences are awesome. Mine have been as well. So my car, I've had it for almost 2 years, Ben, my Model 3 Performance. So far, the only thing that's happened, and it was really random, the front liners. So these cars are very aerodynamic. They have a full underbody cover. There was this like felt piece that somehow hit the ground. So I've zip tied it until I can go get it to a dealership for service. It's like a tiny nothing. Other than that, in 30,000 miles, my car has been perfect. I don't have rattles. My body gaps were good. I have had a perfect Tesla experience so far. And I hope anybody who has as well, share that too. We can't. So part of so Ben will attest to this. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? People who have a great experience never go and say, "Hey, another year where nothing bad happened." All you hear on Twitter and stuff is the negativity. So definitely, if you've had positive experience, I think share that. That way we know there's a balance to it. The other comment was from. Let me see. There's some new ones coming in now. Okay, so then. Krissa Centaur, I believe Krissa, that's how I pronounce it. You mentioned you corrected me on that. I hope I got it right. Says, has this reduced Tesla sales, Ben? Is this really different than saying Ford dealers ghosting mock e-buyers, GM being flooded with buyback requests that they're taking months to process? That's probably a fair point. I mean, no one's perfect. It's not like the other car makers are amazing and Tesla, there's room to improve for everybody. So for me anyway, whenever I talk critically of Tesla, it comes from a place of like, I want to see them even more kick ass. I want to see them in more people's cars and houses. Yeah. And I want to see people who currently would not consider buying a Tesla, consider buying a Tesla because of some of the stuff. But this is not to say that other car companies are amazing by any means. In fact, I have a hard time imagining going into a dealership and dealing with a car salesman again to buy a car. To me, that sounds absurd. So Tesla's still ahead in that regard, as far as I'm concerned. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think these are all great anecdotes, and it's I'm glad to hear that people have had good experiences. It's certainly not universally true, right? And the thing I always had that was interesting was like all my experiences with service people were positive. It was more of like, we don't have that part. It's going to take us 6 weeks before we can fix that. Or or I drop off my car for a week and I come back and I'm like, you didn't fix it. And, there's been so many things, but yeah, great. I'm so happy that some people have had good experiences, right? It doesn't mean that you shouldn't focus on it, right? This is the thing. If the argument is, no, it's okay for customer service to suck or quality to be low, I'm sorry. I just don't agree with that position. It doesn't make any sense. Why would somebody buy a product knowing that they're going to have a terrible ownership experience and the quality is going to be shit? It's not rational, right? It doesn't make sense. You wouldn't do that if your iPhone was constantly crashing and whatever. Apple has really won because I think the quality of their experience has been tremendous. That you have stalwarts like me that don't want to buy it because I don't like the finance team there or whatever. But Apple has made their success on the quality of their products, right? And I think that every business has to make these decisions. Where are you gonna spend your time and effort? So we, as normal people in the chat, myself, you, can squabble over this all we want. We're all just idiots with our own opinions, and so we can do with them, as we wish. Anecdotes like Steven, they're having a great experience. Awesome. I hope everyone has a great experience. Certainly, I, like you, have got hundreds of emails of people that has been not at all the case. So it's share those experiences online if you can, and I hope that Tesla can get their head on straight and start focusing on these things more and just create the overall ownership experience to match how tremendously awesome the products are themselves. You know, DJI is another company like this. Like, I don't know if you have a DJI drone, but I have one.
Yeah, I have a
and
Mavic 2 Pro.
it's amazing, right? It's incredible. Have you ever had to deal with their customer service?
No,
I
no.
did.
One time I had
I
to buy
did.
replacement props, but I just bought them on eBay or something and didn't deal with them.
I had to deal with them, and it was absolutely awful. In fact, they had sold me the thing, and then the phone I had wasn't supported by their software or whatever, so I couldn't use it to fly the thing. And I'm like, all right, so it's useless. And they had to I had to return it to an office in LA within 7 days, and the product could not have been activated. And to even see if it was going to work, you had to activate it. So it was kind of a funny thing where it was like their customer service was absolutely atrocious. And so at that moment, I just decided I'm never buying a DJI product again, ever. Right. And that's what I want to avoid from Tesla. I want to avoid people having these terrible experiences. And the only way to increase the overall experience is to not just focus on one area. So if the notion is, hey, it's okay for customer service and quality to suck, I completely disagree. I think you need to have a holistic view of how to make a company better.
We'll wrap this up in a couple of minutes, but so this is, Simon Fisher says, Ben, if Tesla does that, what you're saying, like invest more in customer service employees, they divert from their mission. You criticized them for doing that 10 minutes ago, right? It's one of these things where
how do they divert from that though? Because it's all part. See, this is okay. We're getting back to this. Whoever that guy is, he's thinking singularly about the company, not holistically. You have to think the ownership experience from the moment you hear about it on social media to your buying experience onto the website to your delivery experience to when you have an issue or getting service done. It has to be whole. You have to have a holistic view of this thing. And if all we have is singular views, we have to make full self-driving and nothing else matters. I think that is a recipe for disaster. So, yeah. Again, disagree with the premise entirely.
I appreciate everybody for sounding off. I love a good debate or a good conversation. There's been great points all around between Ben, the commenters, and everybody else. I really appreciate all of you guys. If you haven't taken a moment, please hit that like button. It really helps us. If you haven't checked out Ben's channel is linked in the description. He talks about all kinds of sustainable tech. Ben, my favorite video you've done still is that hydro panel. Every so often I think about getting a couple. They are expensive, but making water out of air, like on your roof, even if the power goes out. Talk about being prepared for stuff. So check out that video Ben did, and he does tons of stuff, really dig into the data, sometimes beyond what's intuitive, to talk about like how sometimes our minds deceive us a little bit. And so he breaks down data in a really, really awesome way. So if you haven't been to his channel, definitely check him out. I will say, I've always said that if you love something, you should be critical, because that's how you improve stuff. It doesn't mean anything but that you want the best for them, right? So like if my son is doing something, I'm not going to tell him that he's amazing all the time. That accomplishes nothing. Instead, I'm going to tell him all the stuff he's doing wrong, because long term, I think it'll be better. Tesla is clearly a company that there's a lot of love. Looking at the comment section, and Ben mentioned himself, Ben has all Teslas. Is that true? Do you have a non-Tesla vehicle in your entire life?
Currently, no.
No. I have a Tesla, right? So this is a company that we really love. And I think it's just a question of, to me, kind of a little bit about priorities. And also, I think having a little criticism here and there is a good thing, because we want to see them do better tomorrow, instead of feeling good about that they're fine today. That doesn't accomplish much. That's always my personal take. And when I do get emails from people about long wait times for stuff, somebody mentioned that there's other car companies that have problems with service. Tesla has an issue with people, and it's because they're growing so fast. Tesla's solar rollout is unbelievable. Like, they're rolling out to new locations at a scale that's really, really crazy. The problem there is you have to keep up with the salespeople, the reps, the points of contact, the people who file the permits with the city, and all of that too. And they're just growing at like breakneck speed. This is a common growing pain, literally what that expression means outside the human body, because they're going through the pains of having to scale up everything. I think, Ben, you mentioned earlier that you have to scale all the parts of the business together. You can't just be, all right, we've increased capacity in the factory, go make more states available on the website. You have to roll out everything kind of in tandem. So these are things they will figure out. I have no doubt that they'll figure these things out. It's just that they have to keep keep focused and keep doing stuff.
To your point, I mean, if you do a thought experiment about it, right? Let's say you launch your solar in a new state, and boom, you get 10,000 orders. So then you hire, I don't know, 7,000 installers in that state. Awesome, you're cranking, but you hire one person to handle all the paperwork to turn that on. What's going to happen? Exactly like the person you got to email. So yeah, these need to be. It doesn't necessarily have to be one to one. You don't need, for every engineer a customer service person. But if you don't focus on all of the bits, it's going to the gym every day, doing your best, and then going to McDonald's and eating junk food and drinking yourself silly every night, wondering why you're not getting in shape. Right? You need all of the things to really make progress, or to really, have this long, great success, this long, healthy, sustainable business. And exactly, I think any criticisms I launch a Tesla or Elon are all out of a place of love, and all at a place of really caring about making this happen. I mean, this whole thing, why I even got an electric car, was all about my son and wanting to show that we're doing our best to try to live more sustainably, so anytime, so yeah, the criticism is how you improve. These are people pointing out things and ways for you to improve. You can disagree with them. I think that's maybe a funny thing about the internet. People think that because you say something online that there is no room for nuance in it, right? If I tell Elon, hey man, get your shit together, you need to focus on customer service. Who am I? I'm just a schmuck. He doesn't have to listen to me. Like, I'm just some idiot yelling at him on YouTube. Just like other people going, oh my God, you're the greatest thing ever. You walk on water. I saw it. You turned water into wine. Hey, come bless my baby or something. Like, it's the same nonsense, right? Elon and the people there are the ones that get to make these decisions. We don't, as a community, we're not the ones to get to decide it. We have opinions, we have our experiences, we have our, knowledge and our things that we bring here. And I think that's what's healthy about all of these discussions. So, I can disagree with you. You can just, you have an iPhone, we disagree on that. But it's okay. I still love you, right? And that's, I think, what would be great if anyone could take anything away is here, is it can't just be all echo chambers or enemies. We have to have a way to say, hey, that's so-and-so's opinion. I disagree with it, but we're still cool. And the more we can do that, the more I think we can make progress on things, because no one is right all the time, right? We're all can have our opinions and our thoughts and stuff, but until somebody that has the role of deciding it and then they go do it, then you can see what the data shows. And that's where I think it's a fun, interesting thing to follow along with.
Yeah, agreed. So we should wrap up soon. But the general consensus is that I think it's a sensitivity of being critical of Tesla. Dusty Green says, what are your criticisms of Ford and Waymo, Ben? So I
got plenty.
Yeah. So yeah. I think that's it's also missing the point. I don't think Ben isn't shopping for Fords. I don't think. Maybe he will in the future. I'm not sure. It's not really about that. It's more that we could have a different topic. We can have a day where we talk about other gripes and stuff. We'd mentioned the dealership model.
No. Your point is, and I think what you're getting at is, it's not about, like, I don't care about Ford or Waymo. They could go out of business tomorrow and I wouldn't lose a wink of sleep. Right. I don't give a shit about these companies because their mission isn't near and dear to my heart. So I don't criticize them as much because, first off, I don't own their products and I don't care what they do. I think Waymo's cool. I don't think I call that self-driving. It's self-driving within the right. So they have, So. But we all want to be in a cult, right? We all want to have a tribe and a cult, whether that's you're a Padres fan or,
Get into the Padres right now.
Yeah, but you get my point. Like, we all want to be a part of a team. And so when people, it's blasphemy to criticize your team, right? Oh, there goes my camera. But that is the point, is like, I don't care about Ford, so I don't really criticize them as much. I don't have any love for them. Their mission is not near and dear to my, I don't even know what their mission is. Make cars and money. Like, that's, but hey, if you're making really compelling electric cars today and people are buying them, hell yeah, because that is what I'm for. I don't really care what they are. Tesla was one where you guys pioneered this and your mission is near and dear to my heart, which means it's a part of my identity. So I don't mind people being, trying to point these things out or be upset with me because I do this, because they're not the people I'm talking to, right? I'm trying to get to the people that are the decision makers that will make it better. And if you can't really look at yourself critically and become self-aware, then you can't really improve. So, yeah, if people have a hard time with that, then then have a hard time with it. I really don't care.
The fundamental thing
They're
too
not the
is
ones that are important.
people who love Tesla and are buying Tesla already. If talking about sustainability, when we have more electric vehicle sales, it'll force all the other companies to ditch their gas cars because nobody's going to want them. So to make that happen, we got to reach the people who are on the fence, and that's kind of where maybe like to someone like for me, even if like it took more months or something, I might love Tesla enough to wait it out to get that car, that solar roof, whatever. But if there's somebody who could potentially be a Tesla customer tomorrow who's not, how do we improve things to get them there? And really, it's Tesla's. Somebody mentioned their mission is not just Tesla; it's sustainability. But when Tesla does make more cars, make more things, we have more charging infrastructure. Their cars are just all on the news as being the fastest. The Plaid, might seem like a luxury item that nobody needs, but it's a halo car. It tells everybody else if you buy something with a gas engine in it, that's cute, but don't think you're going to compete with this. That's a cool moment, right? So I think we just continue to expand this approach where everybody understands that we need more sustainability. Ben might be having some issues. We're going to wrap this up. Thank you. I hope that kind of clarifies, but I wanted to talk a little bit about Tesla with Ben because Ben definitely has a unique perspective on this. Hopefully the conversation was enjoyable for people. You don't have to agree or not, but we hope to have more guests, by the way. And again, Matt couldn't make it this week. We hope he's going to feel better soon, and we'll have him on. We'll be back next week, and we have a special guest. We're going to be talking with Archimoto CEO Mark Frohnmeyer next week. So definitely hit that calendar reminder for next week and come join us. We'll talk about Archimoto, which is a company that we both love as well. And Ben, we'll have you back for more stuff in the future. I'm glad you're back from your hiatus from your vacation, which I got to take one of those pretty soon. I know Matt does as well.
Yes.
But until next time, guys, thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next week on Vice Versa. Thank you again. Really appreciate you, Ben, for making time to come on. And thank you all of you guys. Man. Thank you for watching. Cheers.
And thanks everyone for the comments. Love you all.
Absolutely.